Hello, everyone. It's great to be here today and great to spend some time with you virtually. I'm also very thankful that I'm not suffering the same technological malfunctions that Martha is. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome today's guest, violinist Hernan Constantino.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Hernan. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty well. Thank you. A beautiful day.
It is. It is. And another glorious day in Southern California.
I know it's going to get warmer too.
I like the sound of that. Thank you for that beautiful performance of the Etude by Wieniawski. Just one of the, in case any of you at home don't know, Vieuxtemps, he was one of the great violinists of the 19th century, a French Belgian. And that I wanted to ask you, how did you pick your instruments? How did you pick the violin?
Well, my father was a violinist before the war, before the Second World War. And he never finished the instrument or never finished music school. And he went into business and it's always in our house, the classical music, it's always in the air. He he gave me a small violin and that's, things came, I don't want to say things came easy, but it's sort of an outlet that I found quite, it propelled me to what I wanted to do. So that started my career. And at a young career too, I was playing already in the National Philharmonic in the Philippines. And at the age of 15, I was already a full-time musician. And
Wow.
yeah, so continued studies here in America
When did you come to America?
1977 October, the Philippine government was supporting me. This is with the old Imelda Marcos, and probably some of our listeners would recognize that name. So I was one of their scholars, and I just decided to stay here.
Wonderful. We just got a question from the audience. When you were growing up and studying the violin, who was one or two of the violinists that you admired the most, influenced you the most?
Oh, so many. I think
Hello?
my father enjoyed David Oistrakh, and of course Heifetz. And remember, this is a long, long time ago, where the prominent musicians at that time, from Isaac Stern, to name a few, but just the playing of Oistrakh was above anything else, and it's always he had all of his recordings, and we would sit in hours just listening to this and that, and he would tell me how difficult this patch is and everything. Those are my memories with my father, and enjoying classical music together.
That's beautiful. So when you came to the United States, where did you end up going to school here?
I went to the Philadelphia College of Performing Arts, which is no longer, I don't think they exist anymore. This is close to Curtis. There's a new school of music, but most of our instructors were from the Philadelphia Orchestra. It's next door to the Philadelphia Music Academy, where the old home of the Philadelphia Orchestra. And my teacher was William De Pasquale, which I started with Dorothy DeLay. But it was, I stayed with her for a couple of years. Dorothy DeLay was sort of contemporary with some of the best teachers like Galamian, and she was a great teacher, but she, of course, it was in New York, and she would only come to Philadelphia once a month, and I would go to New York to have lessons. It was very difficult, so I decided to switch because I wanted to concentrate on orchestra, and of course, what better people to study with is from orchestra members of the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. Just it doesn't beat learning the craft from the experts
I
who've been
know.
doing it for so well for so long.
Hmm.
Yeah. So after college, did you immediately move to San Diego after that, or?
No, I stayed in Philadelphia, worked in the tri-state area in New York, New Jersey. I
Mhm.
I went to New York and worked over there. I did Broadway shows in New York, and I also was in the Atlantic City, casinos, not gambling but playing. And so I was a freelance musician, and I was also a member of the Pennsylvania Ballet Orchestra, which we had. It was more than a halftime. In terms of schedule, it was quite busy.
Mhm.
And then in 1986, then I moved to the Northwest in Portland, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And I got the directorship at the Oregon State University. Stayed there for about 2 years, and but I'm looking at some of these professors in that university, and I'm like, he's been here for 30 years. He's been here for 20 years, and I don't really want to be in that position in 20 or 30 years. I wanted to play and to play with better musicians, and so I started to audition. And I was I was playing in the Oregon Symphony as a sub, and auditioned maybe 2 or 3 times, and they never gave me the position. And then I went here to San Diego, and I won this position, but I missed Oregon, and I remember I moved here 1990 June, and then they had an audition in October in Oregon Symphony, and then they gave me the job after I've signed a year contract here. I said, well, I'll have to wait until the year, but I fell in love with San Diego after that. By the springtime, I told them I'm not coming.
Their loss is our gain.
Yeah.
Oh, so wow! I'm just doing the maths here. 1990. It's almost 30 years of the symphony. You must have had so many memories of playing so many different music,
Oh,
so many different conductors, different colleagues. What are some of the memories that stand out the most to you?
there's a lot of them. Right now it's like but this. One of the most inspiring performance was, I don't even remember the conductor's name. He's a European conductor who came and hardly spoke the English language, but of course we know what he wanted, and
Mm-hmm.
he would be talking to the violins, and violins. Oh, he would be asking all this, and we're like, okay, okay, we know what he wants. But
Uh-huh.
after a week of that, it was one of the most inspired Shostakovich 6 performance, and that is a performance I remember. And of course, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that I do want to share. One time, having engaged an audience,
Mm-hmm.
we were playing. I don't know what the number is. Bruckner 7 or something like that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
long symphony, and
Very long.
I was seated in the first violin, third chair outside, so I was in a clear view of the audience, and we had this part where the first violin was doing a tremolo. Yeah, tremolo is playing at the tip
Mm-hmm.
of our bow as many as we can do, and at pianissimo, very soft. And I looked at the bars. It's like 36 or 32, or it was a long. So here we
Very,
are.
very typical for Bruckner.
I know.
Very
So here we
typical.
are doing this tremolo, and then of course the winds are doing their business. So I started to close my eyes, and I don't know if I dozed off, but opened my eyes because suddenly the orchestra was louder, and then I opened my eyes. Everyone's bow was going up and down, and I'm like, huh? And so I was doing sort of an air bow. It's like okay until I found myself. So it was kind of embarrassing. And then we had a rest on our part, and I looked in the audience, and there was this lady right on the front row, almost not quite on my side, but maybe behind the conductor's, seated behind the conductor, and she was looking at me with a stern look, like, "What are you doing?" And of course, it was embarrassing, and of course, I stayed awake the whole time, but the funny thing is that you know how our audience sometimes they would doze off, and you would hear their programs fall on the floor. You know, the stiff part of the program, it would just, and you'd hear it in the chamber, and so it was her. So she picked up her program, put it on her lap, and she looked up on stage, and then she saw me. I was looking at her. It's like trying to tell her, "What are you doing?" Anyway, it was one of those moments where we kind of laughed at it because when during the bows we were standing, and I looked down on her. She was clapping and smiling at me, and I smiled at her and gave her a small bow, and it was something that I'll never forget. Engage, having that with an audience.
That's that must have been quite the experience.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of your other favorite pieces or favorite memories of pieces that you've played with the San Diego Symphony?
Oh, any of the Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoffs, and I've been enjoying discovering the new music as well. The things that we've been doing the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, being introduced or commissioned this and that. It's very interesting to see the new composers, how they write, and because of that as well, I've been exposing myself to a lot of new violin music, and I think for good reason. For I think the kids need to because I teach too. I think the kids need to learn about the 20th century composers and how they write, so they could understand more about the past. So it's a very
Absolutely.
yeah, it's very wide. So I don't like all of them, but there are a lot of them that I enjoy.
I couldn't agree more. And you can't figure out who it is you don't like until you
Yeah,
try it out and listen to it. See if you like it, maybe not. It doesn't matter.
that's right.
Yeah. Um, so I know besides playing with us, you do a lot of work in teaching and also with students. And right now, I know you're still able to conduct the mainly Mozart Youth Orchestra right here in San Diego.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about how you got into working with students?
Well, I have been teaching for over 30 years, and being music director at Oregon State, of course, I had my own orchestra there, and but I was also affiliated with the old youth orchestra, the Young Artist Symphony, for a good maybe 7 years, and until talks with the Mini Mozart, as we know. They're a promoter they have their festival in June, and they wanted to be a part, or for us to be a part of them. And we sort of got married, and this is already about going to 7 years, and it's been going great. We have ever since the lockdown back in March 16, we decided to continue our education for the kids, and everything is strange. You meet everyone on Zoom, and so we don't really know what to do, but we pressed on, and we were able to do a virtual concert in which we presented back in June. And it was live streamed on Facebook, and it was seen all over the world because of all the comments that I was seeing. So it was a wonderful experience. Like even getting some emails from other youth orchestra. How did you guys do it? How what did you do with this and that? And this past September, we decided to go in person. We found a beautiful Point Loma Presbyterian Church. They have this a number of outdoor. It's all outdoors, by the way, and so we made some shell for our wind players, our brass players, and asked them to be creative, to put some kind of a sock or stocking on their bells, with the exception of the flutes, of course. But everyone's spaced 6 feet. The winds are 10 feet. And we limited to about 17 kids every hour or every 45 minutes. And at the same time, they could log in. If they decide to do virtual, they could log in on Zoom at the same time. So it's been wonderful. Although this starting of the year, because of this new variant that's spreading, I decided let's stay online until everything goes down. So ever since the beginning of this year, at least this month, will all be online.
I can definitely relate to having to pivot and learn how to do a lot more things online, and how to still keep making music despite the pandemic, and using technology as best as we can.
I know, and the kids are. Most of my students are all online as well, and a lot of them have really improved. Maybe it's just the comfort of being at home, that they could just turn their camera on and be in their shorts or whatever, and not to go through traffic or whatever, or other people. But I know it's been hard for some. Some of them had a very tough time because of this pandemic, but a lot of them have really flourished too. I think this would be this will remain as a very viable teaching tool. And I've had students also from the UK and Korea and Japan. So it's been great. And after I teach, I just go to the kitchen and eat.
Commuting is a lot shorter these days. I guess that's another silver lining. Yeah. So during the pandemic, what else have you been doing to keep yourself busy and musically active?
Yeah, it's pretty much trying to keep myself in shape as well, and trying to play things that I've always wanted to play. Maybe wanting to learn fingerings, bowings that I could at least share with my students, and preparing, of course, the youth orchestra and lessons. That's pretty much about it. It's still a full schedule for me. And of course, I was happy that we're able to do something with the symphony, but whether it's only a week here, a week there, but it's nice to see everyone and play together.
Yeah, that has been a really, I think, a really joyful experience for everyone to be able to make music together again.
Definitely.
Yeah. And for our listeners at home, in case you haven't heard already, we will be releasing monthly concerts between now and the end of the season in May or June. So be sure to look out for that announcement and those dates. Great. So I wanted to take this opportunity to go back and answer some more questions from the audience. Can you tell us a bit about your instruments, your violin, and what is the make and the maker and how you got
Oh,
to choose that?
well, I have a number of violins. My first violin was a a French violin by the name of Lupo, and it was the only one I could afford when I was back in the Philippines. Bought it there, and not sure if it's original or what, but it carried me throughout pretty much my career, winning
Hmm.
auditions and this and that, and maybe about 15 years ago, I invested on an Italian violin, Ghibertini, which is he was the repair or maker of Paganini's violin. It was,
Mm.
and so I've enjoyed that sound of French and Italian and a number of other instruments as well that sometimes we have donors that would donate an instrument that they just want. They can't play it anymore. They just want it to be used, and I would have a student play this on loan, and they providing that they
Mhm.
take care of it, and that propelled them to a good instruments for students are very important. And some of them don't really know what a good instrument is. It's a violin they play, but you give them a decent instrument that their level just goes up. So I have a number of those students that are using my violins as well.
Fantastic. What do you? I've always been curious about different national schools of instruments. What do you think are some of the differences between a French violin versus a Italian violin?
Oh, it depends. The Italian violin is just the sound is just really different. The depth of it is just it's hard to describe how how you dig in and what it gives you as to a French instrument. And not to say that it's not, you can make it sweet. So it varies with all these different makers. I can't really make a definition on so much more
Mm.
than that. But you know, there are a number of American makers that make really good violins, and even the new Italian violins are pretty good as well. Chinese makers, it's not that far, you know. So they really know their craft too. So yeah, there's a lot of violins to choose from, and but you know, there's some special ones that you kind of, you know, sometimes when you hold it, you don't want to let go, and
Mm.
I'm sure my colleagues feel the same about those things.
Yeah, it's some sort of just magical chemistry that you
Yeah,
can't quite. You just
yeah,
know it when you hold it.
yeah.
Mm. Um, so another question from the audience: what do you enjoy about contemporary music, and could you tell us a bit about one or two composers whose work have really grabbed your attention?
Corleano. There's a number of maybe just an easy nature of how their compositions. Some of them could be easy to listen to, but some of them there's layers and layers that are so interesting that the more
Mm-hmm.
you listen to, the more you capture.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I
and
think that's so true of and music, great music of any era of any genre.
right,
There's
right.
so many layers. You can go back and you hear something different every single time.
Right, and I'm sure, you know, but when they first heard music of Brahms, it's probably like that. That oh, this is heavy, dark, or whatever,
Right.
um, and maybe now, of course, Prokofiev or Bernstein or any of these even modern composers that people will listen to 100 years from now would be much easier and more accepted. So it just takes a while before, but I do want to expose myself to all these different kinds of music because I think I could share what I enjoy and my knowledge about it to the students that I teach.
Absolutely. Oh, one thing speaking of students, another thing I wanted to ask you about, you've, besides teaching a lot here in San Diego, I know you've also done some work teaching students across the border in Tijuana. And I wanted to
Yes.
ask you about what that experience was like.
Well, we still have a partnership with the Centro de Artes Musicales, which is a youth orchestra in just over the border,
Mhm.
and we created a group which is the first binational youth orchestra called Orchestra of the California Youth Orchestra of the Californias, and I would go down there. They would pick me up. I cross,
Mhm.
and then pick me up and pretty much spend 3-4 hours, have lunch and either to help in sectionals or conduct the orchestra, and we would have concerts. We've had concerts in Tijuana at the Central Arts there. I
Mhm.
forget. And we even had a weird concert. I'll tell you that in a second. But we've had like Cinco de Mayo. Whoever from my youth orchestra can go, who have passports or are permitted to, and we would go down. There's probably about 40 or 50 kids that we would all go there, and then we'll have this bus that will take us down there, and vice versa. They would also have kids who come here, and we presented a concert at the Organ Pavilion. There's like, gosh, over 100 kids, playing this concert. So that very, very talented kids down there. They need really good basic um, uh, education on how to play. They gravitate more in their kind of music, and not to say that they can't play, the classical Mozart but they like more of the romantic. I think that's the nature of their music. But we've had great performances with them.
It's wonderful. That must be such a unique opportunity for kids from both sides of the border. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did were
I
there? Sorry,
we
go
had
ahead.
we had a translator because I don't speak Spanish. I could count in Spanish, so I could kind of give them rehearsal numbers or bar numbers or something like that. But I
The
didn't find the
basics.
communication problem. Yeah.
It's wonderful. So I understand there's you have another piece of music that you pre-recorded for us today, and I also know that there's a very special guest who's performing with you on that piece. Could you tell us a bit about what we'll be hearing
Yeah.
next?
This is I figured I'll share a piece of music that's written by a Filipino composer. The name is Nicanor Abelardo, and this piece was written almost 100 years ago, 1921. And the Filipinos are very romantic in nature, and they love all these pieces that are sweet and soaring melodies, things like that, and they have a lot of songwriters also. Very good. They're easy to listen to, and I asked my daughter to learn my daughter Alexa, my eldest daughter, to learn the piano part, and I wanted to do this back in April, during the lockdown, and my partner with the player, Mandy and Steve Dersham, it was their anniversary. So I recorded this and sent it to them and wished them happy anniversary. And
Oh,
I did ask them for permission if I could share it for this this interview, and they're happy to share this.
that's wonderful, and so good to see that music keeps running in the family.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
my daughter and my two daughters, they both play viola and cello, and my eldest plays the piano, and she teaches young kids as well. But my daughter, they both of them became principal in my youth orchestra, not because they're my kids, but they because of merit. They worked hard at it. In fact, my daughter just declared a double major at Berkeley, music performance and journalism. This is her junior year.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, proud of
Just before we go to the music, I have one more question from the audience, and I'm not sure if you might have answered this already, but you mentioned you did a special concert with the students in Tijuana.
Yes. Yes.
Was
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
that one of the
that was
concerts you mentioned already?
that was one of the concerts that a bunch of kids from Mini Mozart Youth Orchestra went down there, and we presented a concert at the Central Performance, the Center of the Performing Arts there. I wanted to finish. We had a concert with a 1,500 piece children's choir,
Wow.
and the weird part, I know, the weird part was that I don't know if you've ever seen those arenas where they do cockfighting, and so
Uh-huh.
it's like a big arena, and on the center of it, maybe I don't know how many feet it goes down, and that's where we were, and it was really hot too, and the kids were all in this steps, and so
Hmm.
many conductors from every tier. So and they were watching me, and the kids sang and everything, and it was a very festive performance. There was just a lot of people. I don't know how many thousands of people. It was a fun thing to do.
Wow, that sounds like a performance I wish I could have been
Yeah.
there myself. Well, um, we I think this would be a great opportunity for us to go onto your video now. Something a little bit different from 1,500 kids in a ginormous stadium, but I'm very much looking forward to discovering a new piece by a composer I don't know anything about. So
Yeah, this
thank
is
you
called
so
Cavatina.
Cavatina. And the name of the composer was, could you repeat that once more?
Nicanor Abelardo.
Nicanor Abelardo.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Hernan, thank you so much for making the time to chat with us today. It's been just such a pleasure spending this 30 minutes with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And thank you also to all our listeners at home.